Welcome back to another edition of Wake in the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks Live. My name's Michael Singh, and here in lieu of Mitchell Tierney, who is obviously missing today, so we're down one of the three Musketeers. But, it's still us two. I'm joined on my left here by Jeffrey P. Nesker. Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, looking forward to this. I always like it when it's just the two of us because we get more to say. But, one of these days we're going to get into a rip-roaring argument and there'll be no Mitch to separate us. So
yeah,
hopefully that.
So yeah, we have a ton to get to on today's show. Like, we have a lot of Toronto C content, a bunch of news coming out of camp. Of course, we have some Canada soccer news, and we're also super excited to be joined by Meaghen Johnson, who's done some terrific work there for TSN covering the She Believes Cup and Canadians women's national team. So we're super excited to welcome her to the show. In a couple of minutes, she'll be joining us. So, but yeah, let's dive right into things. And
yeah,
Jeff,
let's go.
I think it's important that we start at the top of the show with the TFC BIPOC Coalition statement.
I agree.
That was put out by the club yesterday. And essentially, for some background information, is TFC. It looked like TFC asked their BIPOC coalition, who we've had on in the past, in earlier episodes, Mike Newell and company, to put together really a statement about what Black History Month means. I won't read you the entire statement that they put out.
Can you? I tried once, and I think that's as far as I'm going to go. It's a bit blurry. My eyes ain't what they used to be. But
that's really funny. No, it's pretty legible here, but it is a lot. So I won't. You guys should check it out for sure on Toronto FC's social media channels, and we retweeted it ourselves too. But essentially, what I wanted to get to is that they decided, the TFC BIPOC Coalition they decided not to use the statement as a message to really explain what Black History Month is. We've all seen what 2020 has, and it's really been a year of change, right? And we've seen a lot of action being taken, and that's what they were sort of echoing, is that it's not really about, like, I'll read the end quote they had. They said, going forward, Black History Month should not only be a celebration of the past. It should be an opportunity to build a future that should consist of measurable goals to end systemic racism. Together as fans, we can help advance principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and change the game. Yep. And of course, in their statement, they
outline all the different ways that they've been able to change the game in a very, very, very limited amount of time. I mean, my hat's off to these guys. Really. My hat's off to the organization. My hat's off to the BIPOC Fan Coalition. Let's go through the greatest hits. I mean, we've got a revised fan code of conduct, which we know was something they wanted to do because we spoke to them when the coalition was just basically fresh out of the gate. Cultural nights that aren't entirely military based is a great idea. It's a good thing, and it's inclusive. The change the game.
That's
$30 million over 4 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's $20 million more than MLSE paid for the franchise in 2007.
Is it something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge deal.
And these are. Yeah, I actually spoke to, one thing I want to add to that is I actually spoke to Ali Curtis. I had the opportunity to talk to him last month, and I was asking about TFC's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the questions that I posed to him is, do you think that this sort of has resonated onto the fan base, the club's commitment, because they're obviously leading by example? And to his credit, he was pretty honest with me. He said, with the pandemic, it's hard to really get a grip on what the fans base is really feeling, because he's not dialed into social media and whatnot. But he said he'd like to believe it would. Right. And of course, we talked a little bit about the TFC BIPOC Coalition. And I think these sort of actions by the TFC BIPOC Coalition, a committee made by fans, I think it does answer that question. And it absolutely has resonated onto the fan base. And, all the credit to Toronto FC and what they've been doing there on that end, because It's really important that we start the show off on this now, because these are our values. These are what we also believe, and this is what what should be happening. We should get behind everyone trying to make a difference and, like they said, change the game.
I'm not going to be a fool. I'm not going to be foolish enough to say that systemic racism and issues of that ilk are alien to us here in Canada and Toronto. But I am going to say that Toronto is a very diverse city, and this makes me even prouder as a Torontonian, because I love seeing our diversity in action. I love seeing our the way that we've chose to organize ourselves as a society, paying dividends. And these are some serious dividends. I mean, you can't front on this. A revised fan code of conduct has been a long time coming, and that investment of the $30 million towards all kinds of different grassroots things is just unilaterally fantastic. So
fantastic, and that's just part of what Toronto FC is doing. There's so much more behind the scenes, and there's so much more to come out, because Ali Curtis hinted to me that this is sort of just the beginning of what they wanted to do, and we're excited to see where this goes in 2021. Because I have an article coming out about this later this month.
I can't wait to read it. Nice.
It's about TFC's commitment to diversity and how I believe that was their biggest success in 2020, and I'm betting that in 2021 they back that right up, and they continue that movement, because, like I said, I really do believe that this is just the beginning of what
I have no doubt
trying to do.
I totally agree with you, and I'm just blown away by what's been achieved so quickly.
Cool. All right, yeah, let's move on. Let's talk some training camp news. And
training camp news. Here we go.
Yeah, we didn't get to it last week, but Eric Zavaleta, he looks like he's on the verge of re-signing with Toronto FC. Christian Jack reporting that a deal is done and just pending an official announcement. Initial thought there, Jeff, on the move.
Awesome. Let's not forget he is a MLS Cup champion. He knows the system. Again, it's an outgoing system, but he knows his teammates. He's re-signing for less, so that eliminates the nastiness that was incumbent on him getting the post MLS Cup win salary bump that Bezbachenko was sort of throwing out to everybody, save for Stephen Beitashour. Go ahead.
He's re-signing for less?
I'm assuming he's re-signing for less. I mean, he was making a lot of money for a third-string center back, right? So
$300,000 was roughly his salary budget hit in 2019. Probably took a little bit of an increase even in 2020.
Probably. What is Kevin saying?
I'd imagine that it probably is. Yeah, probably is slightly less, but TFC fans weren't taking this news too. They weren't too welcoming to this news, were they?
Let's put it this way: do you want to pay? Let's just forget about the numbers. Would you rather have your third string center back be an entirely new proposition, or your third string center back be somebody that's both comfortable in the system, and again with the asterisk that the system is undoubtedly going to change, who knows the team, who knows the city, and isn't going to really stiffen at the prospect of playing away for 6 months in East Hartford or whoever, wherever we end up playing, Tampa Bay. And even independent of the pandemic, let's say that there is no pandemic, I still think it's a smart move. A bird in the hand is often worth two in the bush. And, it's not so long ago, again, to call back to the beta debacle, where we wanted to upgrade everywhere and anywhere, and we ended up with Agar Akeche and Gregory Vanderveel. So relax, guys. He's a third string center back. He's again. I think he gets a real short shift with TFC fandom. Some of it comes from the Uncle Greg stuff, which is now in the rear view. And some of it just comes from the fact that, you know, maybe he's just fun to hate on, right? Like he's a good-looking guy with a nice smile, you know. Like maybe he's just
all right. Let me
maybe he's
slow your
just
roll there, Jem,
yeah,
before you
yeah.
get a little too
Yeah.
carried away.
All
But
right,
no,
all right.
fair point. He has become the TFC whipping boy. And yeah, Jeff rated it in the chat. We are talking about Eric Zavaleta, who
Mm-hmm.
is on the verge there of
I
re-signing with
also love
Toronto
it
FC.
when people don't put the hyphen, so resigning becomes resigning, and then it's just about
Some people's biggest pet peeve for sure, but it's pretty common. Anyways, Eric Zavaleta, like he's going to be asked to play a bigger role this year. Something we've seen him do in the past. He hasn't been able to sort of fill that role for the past 3 seasons. There are question marks for sure. There, I think that it's fair to say that. Can he get back to his 2017 form, which I think saw him start 27 of 29 games and 4 playoff games on route to TFC's best season ever, and arguably the best MLS season in history by any club. So Eric Zavaleta played a crucial role in that, and let's not forget he's only 28 years old. So at that price, where are you going to get the amount of experience that Eric Zavaleta brings
exactly.
along with what he's already, settled into Toronto. He knows this, like you said, he knows the system, he knows the players, and TFC they're bringing back a consistent roster. I think only 2 players aren't coming back from last season. So, again, question marks. Can he step up and refine that form, because he will be asked to take on a bigger role this year? We'll just have to wait and see. But he did show positive glimpses towards the end of last year when he was paired with like a Chris Mavinga at the back. So perhaps he can do this. But yeah, enough Zav talk. Let's move on.
Meaghen's here if we wanna bring her on.
Absolutely,
and then move on to the other stuff at the tail end.
Great show.
Just because I see her waiting.
Super
there
exciting.
We go.
Hey.
Ooh, I like this framing. That is a nice.
Yeah, she's one-upping us for sure. She's one-upping us for sure. Of course, we're joined by Meaghen Johnson, who I told you this, privately, but I'm super big fan of your work and what you've been doing covering the She Believes Cup and the Canadian Women's National Team. And thank you, by the way, for joining us. Super excited to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and for your kind words. Really appreciate it.
Hey, it's deserved for sure.
Absolutely.
But let's get right into it. And I want to talk a little bit about Canada, of course, and what they've been doing there at the She Believes Cup. And Vanessa Gilles, right? Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah.
I think it's Gilles without the S for the French pronunciation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Gillies, Vanessa Gillies, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Well, anyway, she might become a household name, and people are gonna learn how to pronounce her name based on the way she's been performing. But she's been create a little bit of problem there at the back for Bev Priestman, and when after her showing up against the U.S., when this team is fully healthy, where do you see Vanessa slotting in there?
It's an interesting question, and one I thought of after her outstanding performance against the States. I will say, I really didn't know too much about her. She's been on the roster fairly consistently for the past couple of years, but prior to Thursday, just had the 2 previous appearances. But it's a good problem for Canada to have, I will say, because when we knew that Kadisha wasn't going to be at this tournament, we're like, okay, we have Zadorsky. Who's partnering with her? Is it going to be Quinn? Are we going to slot Schmidt back to center back because she's played there? And I will say, Gilles didn't even really pop into my head as an option, but she is absolutely an option now. I think it's hard to replace that partnership of Buchanan and Zadorsky. I don't see Bev breaking that up when Buchanan is back in the mix. But again, knowing that they have that depth now on the back line and at center back specifically, again, it's a great problem to have. That, okay, we have 3 really strong options now to slot in at center back.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a 3 at the back situation maybe against some of the teams where that would that might be a benefit?
I don't know. I will say I was never a big fan of the 3 in the back. I know Kenneth Heiner-Muller really liked his 3-5-2 formation. It worked against some of the lower CONCACAF competition. They could get away with it then. but they got burned quite a few times. It happened in Sweden in the World Cup, most notably. But even I think the first time Heiner Muller rolled it out was in the friendly against Germany in 2018, and literally the first minute of the game, Germany scored. So I'm just not a big fan of three in the back. No question, Canada, their back line is really strong. It's probably their strongest element, but I just
It gives
it
you
creates
high.
it creates a lot of problems. So I would shy away from the three in the back line myself.
You're talking to TFC guys, and that 3-5-2 maybe won us the MLS Cup. So we sort of went
Right.
a little. Who else impressed, and on the flip, who may be disappointed?
Quinn, I was really impressed with in their first game against the U.S. We'll see, Quinn is another player where they've slotted in different spots. They've played on the back line, they've played in the midfield, but I thought Quinn in the midfield was fantastic. They were disrupting the American attack a lot and really allowing Fleming the freedom to do Fleming things and to create that attack, which was great. It was unfortunate that Quinn did suffer an injury in training. Hopefully they are okay and we can get to see them in Wednesday's match. I think that would be great. Sarah Stratigakis too. Obviously, she scored Canada's lone goal so far. But I think her goal is kind of an epitome of who she is as a player. She's just that hard worker. She has that grit, that Canadian grit that we love to talk about. So I was really happy to see her get that goal, having not been a part of the senior team since 2017. That was really great to see. I won't say disappointed, but I would really like to see Vienne score, Evelyn Vienne. I know there's a lot of buzz about her. So many people were so thrilled to see her get her first call up to the national team and get her first international experience. I think it's a matter of time with her, knowing just her prowess as a goal scorer. I don't think we need to press the panic button quite yet that in 2 appearances and not even starts yet for Canada, she hasn't scored yet. I think good things are coming from her for sure.
Yeah, would you chalk that up to the fact that she's not playing with the proper mix of players that would support the kind of game that she plays up front, or just opportunity?
I'm not sure if it's a question of personnel. I think it just might be a matter of her adapting to the international game. I had the chance to talk to her in the weekend, and she said what she's learned so far is on the international stage, it's a lot quicker. And she said she needs to just learn to release the ball that second earlier, or get that touch in a second earlier. So I think it's just a learning curve for her. This is a completely new stage for her, and maybe what she's used to doing at the club level with Paris FC, or even before that, not only with Sky Blue, but in her collegiate days, it's just, again, okay, maybe what I was doing doesn't quite work on this stage. So she just needs to figure that out, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. And she could be the answer to this next question, but Meaghen.
Great segue.
Canada's biggest problem is still very much their inability to score. And, what is going on in front of goal? And is there someone, other than Christine Sinclair, that can consistently put the ball in the back of net for the Canadians?
Right. You're absolutely right. That dark cloud that has been hanging over Canada for how many years is, if it's not Sinclair scoring the goals, who is?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Canada hasn't really done a lot to dispel that in this tournament. I will say, to try to look at things glass half full, they're creating a lot of chances, and that hasn't always been the case with the team. They're creating some grade A chances, especially against the Americans. If I were to look back at their previous match prior to Thursday against the Americans, which was in the Olympic qualifying final, they did next to nothing offensively in that game. Heiner Muller had them playing with 5 at the back in that game, which was okay. Kind of stemmed the tide a bit against the Americans, but they weren't creating anything offensively. Like, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times they were in that final third. So to see them at least, really create those opportunities, and you're seeing a lot of good connections and a lot of good breakouts, that's the positive for sure. Obviously, finishing has been an issue. Janine Becky had 2 glorious chances against the Americans. And honestly, we've seen her finish those. She's usually very clinical in front of net. So, and to her credit, she completely owned up to them. And she posted on social media. He said, you know what, those are on me. No excuses. I missed them. I'll do better.
Right.
Jessie Fleming, similarly, she had a couple of great chances in the Argentina game.
Great
So,
chances, yeah.
yeah, again, glass half full. They're creating the chances. They do have the personnel and the players on the pitch that we know can finish those. It's a matter of finishing them. So hopefully against Brazil plays a little more wide open, and Canada often seems to fare well against them just because, at least from a defensive standpoint, Brazil doesn't tend to be as organized on their back line. So that does create those openings for Canada that they usually take advantage of. So I think we could see some goals from Canada in tomorrow's match.
Yeah. That was my last question, the Brazil preview. So I'll save some of that for later. But I noticed a rather precipitous drop off in high quality chances between the American game and then the follow up against Argentina. Was that just me? Was it because I was hungry and needed a nap, or do you agree with me? Like I thought that they were very probing in the first game. Really, really good chances, lots of interplay, nice overloads. And then the Argentina game became a long ball, Hail Mary, desperation. It felt like I was watching the LA Galaxy sometimes, like just aimless crosses
Right.
to nobody in particular. And that bothered me. I loved the goal, but I don't think I've seen an uglier one in a very long time. So, sort of rolling that into the Brazil preview, like what Team Canada do you think we're going to see for game number 3?
I think it'll be closer to the one we saw against the Americans. Again, maybe that's just me being optimistic. I think with Argentina, what you saw, Canada has difficulties and has had difficulties against those teams that just bunker down and play 10, 11 players behind the ball. You see that in a lot of the CONCACAF tournaments where obviously teams do that against Canada just and hope in a prayer that they get something on the counterattack. And yeah, as I said, Canada's just historically, at least in recent years, they've really had trouble breaking through those low blocks. And as you said, it's just a lot of, okay, play to the wings, cross it in, see what happens. And they're just lacking that final touch or that final bit of creativity, or also just for someone just to be a bit selfish, just drive at their back line and take it themselves, or just take that final shot. They're often looking to pass when they're in a scoring opportunity themselves. So I think, looking ahead to Brazil, I think it will be closer to the Americans. First of all, Brazil is not going to bunker down. They're not going to play that low block. As I said, they don't tend to be as organized on their back line as, well, the Americans. Obviously, Argentina, that was their game plan. So it's going to create a lot more opportunities for Canada. So I think we'll see a bit more from them offensively in that game.
Yeah, I'm expecting a track meet. I mean, producer Kev just said, here, I'll bring it up. Brazil is a 3-1 favorite to beat Canada tomorrow. Do you agree with those odds? Seems a bit harsh.
Yeah, that is a bit harsh, I would say. I know Canada, their 2 most recent matches against Brazil haven't gone well. The Tournoi de France last year, it was a 2-2 draw. Canada did come back. They were 2-0 down, and they came back to tie in, I think it was the final 20 minutes of the game. So there was that. Before that, they lost 4-0 to Brazil. That was just very ugly. That was post-World Cup and was not a good game at all. But again, I think Canada historically, despite the 2 most recent results, they fare well against Brazil. I think it lends to their style a bit, having a bit more of an open game. It's always a physical battle, which I think often lends to Canada's strengths as well. So I think it's a bit harsh to say the odds given in that game. I think it's, again, Canada being underestimated a bit.
I agree.
Yep.
Both
if I bet on sports, I would take those odds, but I don't. So.
Both of those teams are tied in the FIFA World Rankings, and I think they're both ranked 7th or 8th. So yeah, that does seem a little bit harsh. Jeff, I'm gonna steal your question here. And
of course you are.
I'm gonna ask Meaghen. I want to ask you about Bev Priestman and the job that she's done so far. So, sort of, can you give us a little bit of a Bev Priestman report card, and what do you think?
So far so good, I will say. Despite obviously the struggles on offense that we've talked about. I think she's instilled a lot of confidence in the team, and I think you really saw that against the Americans, where Bev, for this past week, 2 weeks, she's repeated bravery, brave so many times
Mm-hmm.
in all of her media availability. And she said, that's what I want from the players. And I think that's what you saw, is that this Canadian team wasn't afraid of the Americans, despite all the all the hurdles piled against them, not having played for almost a year, missing obviously some very key players. They could have used all those excuses just to go out and like, well, we tried. But
Mhm.
you didn't see that. You saw them really take it to the Americans. In a lot of ways. And I think with Bev too, what we've seen so far, and I think she might be taking a page from John Hardman's book a bit here, but just talking about bravery, she's not afraid to let those younger players on the pitch and give them the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. Now, part of that is just the roster realities right now. Again, missing key players. In the last game, Quinn was injured. Obviously, Sheridan was injured, and Gilles has gone back to France now.
Mhm.
So there was, again, just this is what the players available to her, so letting them the opportunity. But I think we will see more of that from Priestman, where she's just going to give it to her, give the chance to her young players, to the teenagers or the uncapped players, and say, okay, go show what you can do.
And a lot of them
Amazing.
have stepped up. And you know, yesterday they were against Argentina. It was Jade Rose getting
Hmm.
the start there at center back, 18-year-old. What
She
did you
looked
make of
terrific.
her? Yeah, what did you make of her? Start against Argentina there.
I really liked her. I thought, again, for talking about an 18-year-old, she
Yeah,
looked incredibly poised. Um, Again, Argentina probably didn't have a whole lot to do. Well, she didn't have a whole lot to do, but when she was called into action, or even just her touches on the ball, her passing, just very impressive. Again, we're talking 18 years old, her first cap. Yeah, I'd definitely be interested to see more from her and what she can bring.
it's crazy because Gilles is 24, Buchanan's what, 25. Do you know how old Zatorsky is? Probably around the same
She's a
age.
bit older. I believe she's 27 or 28, around there.
27,
Yeah.
28. But these girls still have years in front of them. But then you
Hmm.
think of an 18-year-old trying to break into the squad. It creates a good problem, I guess, to have. And that's going to be competition moving forward. And something we really haven't seen in the past of Canada. I guess in that line of thinking is, are we entering sort of a new era where we're not going to see players come in at 18 and play constantly throughout until like 33? Are we going to see a lot more turnover, do you think? Or do you think we're still going to see some of those household names that are established for decades?
I think we are definitely entering a turnover for Canada, or a new era.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that happens pre-Olympics or post-Olympics kind of remains to be seen, and what Bev Priestman wants to do with the roster. But I know obviously Sinclair is a big question mark if this is her last major tournament with the Olympics. If anyone were to play into their 40s, it would be Christine
Yeah.
Sinclair, but we'll see. That's completely up to her. But I know Steph Labbe had said a few times last year that she's going to go to Tokyo, and then that's it for her. She's retiring. Alicia Chapman had hinted, at least before the 2019 World Cup, that was her last World Cup. So we might
Aww.
be seeing her retire.
Interesting.
Yeah,
She's my favorite.
I
I love
know.
her.
Oh,
I mean, my
Chappie.
wife's name is Alicia, so it's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Chappie
But
is always fun to watch for sure.
was she
um,
who's the one that tweeted the real heroes of the Argentina
That
game
was
for the
Alicia.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's why we love her. That
Oh,
was
totally. Yeah,
savage. I loved it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But you could even see, longtime vets like Desiree Scott or Sophie Schmidt. I
Mm-hmm.
will say I think Sophie's looked a bit slow in this tournament. It's a bit harsh, but I think about
No,
in the
we
game.
agree. Yeah,
Okay.
we agree.
When I think about the game against the Americans, when she subbed into the game and Quinn came out, there was a noticeable
Hmm.
difference in that game after that sub.
Mm-hmm.
The American attack had a lot more fluidity to it, and one was able to do what they wanted to do. Now that also has to do with the Americans having that crazy
yeah.
triple sub. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at who they're bringing on.
Yeah.
You know, like Alex Morgan, Rose Lavelle. My goodness, like.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the
that team is
American depth in a
disgusting.
nutshell. It's like, oh, you had those 3 players on the bench. Great. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're so accustomed to seeing Desiree Scott and Sophie Schmidt, you know, in that center of the park. But we were even talking about moving forward. We don't know if that's the best option now for Canada because they have looked a little bit slower, and the game is so much quicker now that players like Jessie Fleming look like absolute superstars with her ability to move around the pitch.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that central midfielder, that midfield role, there's going to be a lot of competition, isn't there? I guess my question is there's no set, I guess, central pairing right now, is there?
No, there's not. I think you have Fleming. I think she's a lock for sure.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, yeah, there's a lot of competition, not only like as her partner, but even looking at the holding midfielder role that Scott has held for how many years now. I think you could see a lot of competition. Quinn has slotted into that role before, and they've done well there. Julia Grosso, who we haven't seen yet in this tournament, she's done well in that role in the past too. So yeah, I think besides Fleming, looking at that trio in the middle, as you said, it's completely up for grabs, I would say, for sure.
And even with the play of the fullbacks here at the tournament, it opens up some options for potentially Ashley Lawrence even moving up and slotting into that central midfield. And just, I think the theme of this tournament is Bev Priestman's done a great job at having other players step up, and it creates options for them moving forward, which, you know, heading into the Olympics, that's everything that we could ask for. One last question for me before we let you go, and I want to ask a little bit more about Jessie Fleming. And a lot of people were critical of her staying in school for as long as she did, and doing her 4 years there at I forget actually the school that she went to, but she did her 4 years there at university, and then she turned pro obviously at the age of 22, moving over to Chelsea. Do you think that has stunted her development a little bit? Or do you believe that, you know, she's still on track to be this absolute superstar?
I don't think it stunted her, no. I can understand the criticism for sure, because I think you saw with her time at UCLA that she was beyond the collegiate level for sure. She, you know, to kind of use the phrase, she was a woman playing with girls, I think. But we know how important her schooling was to her, and that she was going to finish her degree, and all the credit in the world to her for that. And I think, honestly, seeing her in these 2 games in the tournament, despite the fact that she's not getting a lot of minutes with Chelsea, I think training in that environment has helped her. I think you've seen it in those 2 games, especially again in that game against the Americans. I just think of that one sequence in the middle of the pitch where she was just literally going around all these Americans, and it took Lindsay Horan literally rugby tackling her to stop her. That's Jessie Fleming in a nutshell, right? That's what she can bring for Canada. So I don't see her development being stunted at all.
Agreed. She's looked absolutely fantastic out there, and even against the Americans, she looked like one of the best midfielders out there, and she's proven that she could play with the best of them. So super excited for me. Jeff, do you have any more questions for Meaghen?
I mean, I was going to ask, just maybe opening a can of worms, but say the Olympics don't happen, what is the knock-on effect to the program? Is it scorched earth? We're not playing again until everyone's vaccinated, or do you see other opportunities?
Good one.
It is a good question, and I'm not sure I have the answer for it. I guess the concern would be that, yeah, the Olympics don't happen, which are very much a question mark. If you look at what happened to Canada last year, they didn't have anything, no camps or anything, while other teams, especially those top 10 teams, were able to at least get a friendly in. There was obviously Euro qualifiers going on as well. So I would be concerned that Canada would, just remain off the pitch again and fall into that lapse again. Obviously, hope that wouldn't happen, especially as you would then look forward to, okay, now we have World Cup qualifying coming up in a year. Let's get ready for that. And I don't have that answer for you.
For sure.
It's a big question mark, and it would be a concern that Canada Soccer would just go, okay, no Olympics, well, let's have a wait and see approach.
Yeah.
What we were talking about was potentially, obviously, the problem with the Olympics is that there's so many sports and so many athletes from so many different countries coming together. What if it was just soccer, a women's World Cup that was in a bubble, where maybe Canada, Argentina, United States, have perhaps maybe 16 teams that can come together? It's obviously still a lot to overcome, but it could be a potential solution if there is no Olympics to have a tournament in its place that's just soccer.
Would the Olympic Committee plan it? I don't think so, because it would be
maybe it's not Olympics.
Brand,
maybe it's a a different type of cup. But
she believes Electric Boogaloo. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I just think it's so important that these women continue to play, especially at the highest level. We see like they said that it's a different level when they get up there. So
we can take some comfort in the fact that American game, after that layoff, they still hit the ground running and they were very committed. So
absolutely, yeah.
We can definitely take some comfort in that even if there is another year layoff, which is not something any of us want to happen, at least we've seen some proof that it's not as horrific in terms of delaying development and things like that. So,
So here's to hoping we don't have to cross that bridge.
Exactly.
But anyways, Meaghen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for coming and chatting.
Insight was exactly why. Yeah, it's exactly why I wanted to have you on here.
Awesome.
Like I said,
thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the invite.
Of course.
Cheers. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Wow, that was awesome. Good score on that guest.
Meaghen,
I really
Meaghen Johnson. She does some great work there for TSN. You can follow her on Twitter. I'll spell her name out because it is a little tricky, but I do recommend checking out her work. It's Meaghen. Sorry, Meaghen Johnson. You can follow her on Twitter. Yep. So let's move on.
We're going to veto the talk of the new coaching staff until we get to know them a little bit better.
Yeah, really. It's worth mentioning, though, and TFC obviously announcing their new coaching staff that's going to be joining Chris Armas on the touchline. You got Javier Perez, Ian Russell, Ewan Sharp, and John Conway. John Conway, obviously, with Toronto FC for a bunch of years as their goalkeeper coach, so it's good to see him back. We'll see what these assistants do. Obviously, with assistants, we never have a good measurement of what they really do and what.
The general consensus from people that know the names of the players was that these are all great hirings.
Cool.
So I mean, we'll leave it at that.
It's
you got a new sports science guy, which is great because here come the injuries. Here they come. Justin Morrow properly re-signed with the club, even though it's not official.
Same thing.
He's got a calf issue. Achara.
You're just breezing through, eh?
Crap. Achara. So that's crappy.
Let's talk about Justin Morrow a little bit. And obviously, he had his calf injury that held him out of the playoffs last season. Held him out of a little bit towards the end of the year, and with everything that he was dealing off and on the field, I mean, no one really could fault him. 2021 start of it, you're going to see a little bit more of the same thing. That being said, I do expect Justin Morrow to get fully healthy. I mean, he was on this show and he was telling us how much he was ready to, kind of come back, and he's looking forward to. He still has a lot of juice left in him, is what he was saying, and I agree. It just we need to get him healthy first, and I think this is sort of that first step. It's probably still an injury that's lingering from last year, and once he's back, fully healthy. Let's get him going. So for now, I expect RO or Richard Larea to be manning down that left back position.
Kevin, my goodness.
Along with Matt DeRosa there at the back, who's obviously the rookie that they drafted. And then let's talk Achara, because Steve Buffery had this tidbit, which is great get, because we were all wondering about it, and we talked about this a little bit, but it looks like Achara is going to be out a few more months for Toronto FC, as he's obviously recovering from an ACL injury that he suffered in July, preparing for the MLS is Back tournament. Any surprise there for you?
Not really, because we didn't hear much about training and that sort of thing, so I started to get the inclination that he was maybe not at 100% health. I mean, it still sucks to see it written out and therefore made official by virtue of being written out. Out a few more months means when we play the Can Champ, he's not in the squad.
Right.
But we could get blessed with more COVID delays and other shenanigans, and it may not be as big a deal as we're making it out to be here on February 23rd.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, he hurt his ACL or his ligament in July, and if you tear something like that, you're going to be out close to a year.
Shed a tear for Jordan Morris.
That's just, seriously, shout out Jordan Morris and sending him our best wishes. But
that sucks.
In terms of Achara, he was by all accounts sure ahead of schedule, but why risk that with a 23-year-old? There's just no point in making sure he's ready for the first game of the season if that's a risk. Give him all the time that he needs. He's going to be a member of Toronto FC for a long time is the hope. Get this guy fully healthy, and then get him going. Ease him in. There's no need to rush Achara back. So yes, sure, disappointing that he won't be back for a few months, but at the same time, I'm happy that the club is being cautious on that note.
100%.
This kind of segues into. I'm going to add something here, and let's talk about Ayo Akinola and the Canadian men's national team camp. That the
Mitch isn't here. But we need to mention his savage tweet because it was savage. But
the preliminary roster for the men's Olympic qualifying was named, and there's 50 names obviously on each team. That's just the pool that they can choose from to draw what will be probably close to 20-something, 23, 24 names. And on that roster, there were 8 Toronto FC players, 10
CPL players,
10 Canadian Premier League players, but
Ayo
was omitted from that. And we took a look at the US's roster, their 50-player pool list that was named. And guess what? No Ayo Akinola. So it got us scratching our heads a little bit. And what's going on here with Ayo? And speculation at first was, as Mitch pointed out, was that Ayo was sort of waiting to make his decision because he's obviously eligible to represent both the United States and Canada. And it got me thinking, though. Ayo Akinola missed January training camp with an injury, an undisclosed injury. And obviously it was out of his control. He couldn't go to camp. He's still yet to partake in Toronto FC training camp. We learned that from Chris Armas last week, is that he's still recovering from an injury. Is this injury related, perhaps?
Probably.
That would be my bet, because the Olympic qualifying takes place next month. And if Ayo Akinola is not on the field training, what are the odds he's going to be ready to participate in Olympic qualifying for one of Canada or the United States?
Yeah,
if it's my guess that there's a little bit more of an injury concern with Ayo Akinola, which is why I brought it up here. It's, if Ayo is injured and Achara is injured, you're counting on
Patrick Mullins,
Patrick Mullins, and Jordan Peruzza there up top to fill that void for the Canadian Championship, which is going to be a big game. And of course, if he isn't ready for April, perhaps even the start of the season, and April 6th, 7th is CONCACAF Champions League as well.
So instead of talking about Pozuelo, can we talk about why TFC shouldn't sign Rafael Santos Borre now that we're down to Josie, Mullins, and Peruzza, and you say we still don't need a number 9?
Yeah, you want me to get into that one?
Well, I mean, okay, what did Pozuelo say about Chris Armas? That he's great, and that if he was a coach tomorrow, he would be a disciple of the Chris Armas school of medium pressing. Do you think I've covered all the bases?
So hold on, hold on. But what I want to add on that note of the Pozuelo note of what he said about Chris Armas is, do you remember what Poz said at the end of last season?
I'm tired. No,
he said, if I was a coach, I would play my young guys a lot more. We have Liam, we have Jaden, we have Ayo, we have a bunch of these young up-and-comers. And if I were a coach, I'd be playing, that was his exact quote, I'd be playing these kids more. And I wonder if that's a hint towards what we're going to see. Of course,
absolutely.
It's probably more likely. It's probably more likely he's talking about the energy and intensity and the level that Chris is.
He was making subtle digs, man.
A little bit better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Free the young guns,
me too.
baby. Free the young guns.
Me too. All right, Borre.
That's hilarious.
Bore me with Borre. Let's go.
All right. So this is a big one. And
I'm just gonna bring up this comment here since it segued.
It's why. Obviously, Toronto FC have been linked to Rafael Santos Borre, and we've talked about it on this show for weeks. And here's why I think Toronto FC shouldn't sign Rafael Santos Borre. Sam Stejskal of The Athletic, he had a lot of the details, but he reported more about the under-22 player initiative, which is going to be implemented this season. It's not been finalized yet. The details haven't come out, but this is a report that he has. And on the details of the U22 player initiative, it says that clubs are able to buy either one or name one or three players under that initiative, which essentially it gives them a lower cap hit than what they're actually spending on the player. So hypothetically, you could pay a young player 500, 600,000, but their cap hit only comes out at 150,000, let's say, right? Which is great. You can only use three of those if one of your designated players is under the age of 22.
So in order to activate the BOGO sale, one of your DPs needs to be purchased at the regular price at the right age rate.
One of your DPs needs to be under the age of 22. So right now, Toronto FC obviously don't have that. They have Alejandro Pozuelo, who's 30 years old, and Josie Altidore is about the same. So if TFC go ahead and they purchase Santos Borre, that
at 25
flexibility from them, because now they can only use one of those under 22 designated player spots. And the way that Sam Stejskal worded it is this initiative could be as game-changing one day as the designated player, the Beckham rule, and as the allocation money.
The TAM-GAM, thank you, ma'am.
So if TFC, they're a club who can spend, if they want to maximize this rule, then they would buy a third designated player who's under the age of 22 years old.
It's a smart play on paper. The thing that I'm laughing about right now is that 2 years ago, hey, TFC's pursuing a forward, a 25-year-old forward DP. We'd all be doing backflips. I mean, Seba was 28 when he came in, but now that's not good enough. It's like, no. We need to get him at the zygote stage, because then we unlock, this and this and this. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the machinations of it and what it means in terms of a roster spend, and bearing in mind the state of our academy, and that, if we want to say pay Achara and Io over and above, we got to have a DP in the mix that allows for that, which is smart. But it's a lot of hoops to jump through, Mike. And at the very beginning of the obstacle course is, who is this magical 21-year-old a DP worthy player? You know what I mean? And do we get to choose? I mean, is it going to be a number 9 or is it a center back, right? Like, and if it is a center back, are we so in love with the idea of gaming the system, Bezbachenko style, that we're willing to sign a 21-year-old center back designated player and absorb the ire and the laughs of all the other clubs? And
the cost, right? If Rafael Santos Borre, he's gonna, let's say he's a type of player that would regularly command an 8-figure transfer fee.
Easy.
Right? So if he is that player, then it might just be worth foregoing the extra 2 maximum the under 22 player initiative spots and just settle for the 1 and go ahead with Santos Borre. And then when Josie Altidore, obviously, when his contract ends up, and
that would be my play. In a cold, heartless logic, that would be my play. I wouldn't be worrying about Borre. I'd be thinking about what happens when we've got Josie's spot clear. In a cold soapboxing, no emotion, totally logic, because I'll put it this way. Santos Borre was on par to be a 30 million euro player before the pandemic hit. And if you look at his transfer market value right now, he's a steal.
So yeah, that's the cost reward kind of thing. And
that may be enough to turn heads right now. I mean, the fact that you can get a guy who's 3 years younger than Seba was when he came and lit the league on fire, in a number 9 position for so much less than what he would have been worth in the normal times.
For sure,
that might trump all. I don't know. I mean, listen, the latest stuff out of Argentina is that he's re-signing with River. So this might be a completely useless conversation anyway.
But it is.
But
I did want to highlight this because this could be what the delay is with what
sure,
TFC's decision to get a new designated player. Do they go younger,
absolutely,
or do they get someone in their prime right now? And
absolutely.
it's
I mean,
it's one
you know,
that they're gonna have to talk about, and it's one that in my opinion, with the up and coming young talent that Toronto FC have on their roster, they might have time to perhaps buy a year or two without using it, and then perhaps use it on one of the younger guys.
well, do we get 5 spots if we sign a 21-year-old now, and then when Josie's out, we sign another 20-year-old? Like,
No, it doesn't work. It's
oh
either
man,
3 or 1, from my understanding, for based on Sam's
nah,
reporting
I'm
there.
writing them a strongly worded letter. I want
So
more.
if that's like your barriers there, it's an interesting debate, at least,
Mhm.
because you could see it going either way. Because if TFC want to maximize their spending, the way to do that is getting these young designated
Yeah,
players,
absolutely,
right?
without question,
Or
without
young
question.
U22 initiative players, and
It's a very
maximizing
interesting
that.
point.
So.
Very interesting point. And I mean, how does this affect Erickson Gallardo?
Well, it does. It really does, and his
Mhm.
leash is becoming shorter and shorter. And we saw again Steve Buffrey with getting a quote from Ali Curtis about Erickson Gallardo, and Ali Curtis was saying that he's going to explore all options essentially,
Mhm.
and that means a potential loan move, and that also means perhaps giving him an opportunity under a new head coach in Chris Armas. And
Yeah, I think we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I love to rag on him. He's my Zavaleta, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. See what happens. New season, new coach, new support staff, possibly a new system. With Achara out indefinitely, once again, EG's been given an opportunity.
seriously, he
So
wears that number 9. He wears that number 9 shirt, so perhaps EG is a dark horse to emerge as someone who could, make a difference perhaps early on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you want to keep it civil, let's move on to the next.
Great tidbit from Chris Armas's media availability last week, and honestly, perhaps one of the most surprising tidbits is Toronto FC and Montreal might be having a preseason friendly
Nice.
before the Canadian Championship. According to Armas, Montreal's been more than helpful and more than willing to help TFC prepare for that Canadian Championship final. Perhaps it's a little bit of scratch my back, I'll scratch yours later on down the road. But
yeah,
that was surprising to see from our Toronto FC's biggest rivals being so grateful. I mean, perhaps it's or generous. Perhaps it's the ramification of what 2020's brought, and everyone just has to be nice to each other now.
Or they're going to lock us in the Stade Olympia, and then we won't be able to play for you. They'll be like, we don't know where TFC went. Here's Sammy Piet and the B Squad. Yeah. I mean, maybe they're courting Toronto fans because most of the previous Impact fans want nothing to do with the club now post rebrand. So.
I want to talk about that a little bit too. What did you think? What did you think about that club to foot rebrand, man?
Oh, I hate it so much. I
I feel bad.
I feel terrible for them. I feel terrible for the fans. I really, really do. Like, to get that in the mail, to get that piece of coal in your stocking,
that hurts.
It hurts, and the kit's horrific. I mean, I know some people like it. I'm just happy that we're not getting that new refined
new BMO logo. Oh,
it's so terrible.
You can tell we're not a Montreal Impact. We're Club de Foot Montreal show, guys.
I love our rivalry. I love it. So
the
much.
Is great.
And I love sports hate because it's not real.
It's just TFC ripping
what
Montreal
I mean?
fans.
I love Montreal. Montreal's a hell of a city, man. Montreal's a great place
Montreal.
to go for a
great
weekend.
Food.
Great food, great culture. I mean, it's so wonderful to have a city, like to have a province like that in our own backyard.
Terrible soccer team. That's the only thing.
And they don't seem to give much of a crap about appeasing their fans. It's a standard problem. Enough words. It's always chasing the unicorn of new fans, right? Like we don't care about what we've got because we're looking over the horizon and we see and again, we're just parroting what other people have said, and this is now an older argument. But it's nice to see the fans take a stand. If TFC had done that to us, I think we would be just as inflamed. It's nice. It's
They
nice
wouldn't do that to us. Come on.
Well, I mean, you could have asked an Impact fan, and they might have said the same thing. But more power to them. I think the eventuality is, Club de Foot is here to stay. But
sure.
it's nice to see people not afraid to be pissed off and not afraid to hold the feet of their club up against the fire. I think it was boneheaded. Yeah.
On that note, thank you very much again to Montreal for offering to help us out.
Yes.
On that friendly. Really appreciate that. But your rebrand.
Yes. And please keep Thierry Henry long enough until I can actually see him at a game coaching you, because
do you mind?
Why is Seba and Greg Vanny and Seba going to Los Angeles Galaxy?
Why is Greg Vanny trolling us? Why is he doing that?
I know. I know. Why is he
We've seen it
us?
so many times. He's so smart with his words. I think, like he said, he talked in circles for about a minute and didn't really confirm or deny anything.
It's not happening. It's not even the fact that it's the LA Galaxy and that the rules keep getting remade for them. It's not happening. The amount of money they would have to outlay. Now I'm starting to feel like I'm you guys when I said Greg.
That's what I'm saying, Jeff. Be careful. Don't walk down that road.
But I don't want to talk about that anymore because it sucks, and it's sucky and
yeah. Well, one thing I will say is it's very unlikely that it does happen because LA Galaxy currently have 2 of their designated player spots taken. The other one is likely going to go to Christian Pavone whenever they can get that situation settled. So
if Seba goes to LA Galaxy on TAM after leaving us because we weren't willing to pay, I will riot. All right,
that's what I mean.
I will riot.
I don't even want to entertain that because I doubt it's even a thing. But anyways, Jeff, we've ranted on for about an hour here.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up. This is what we need Mitch for.
Probably do that, right? Something like that.
Raise a toast to Jordan Morris.
Seriously.
Super duper sad. Would you say that's the end of his European adventure?
I hope not.
Me too.
Hope not.
I mean, he is only 25 years old, but he's busted both ACLs now.
Yeah, seriously. But the good thing is, like, his last ACL, he came back from super strong, and
he came back arguably a better player.
He's shown he's capable of bouncing back. It just, it breaks my heart to see that happen to him. Obviously, again, we send our condolences and wish him the best there in his speedy recovery. And just a massive week for the Canadian women national.
Yeah, we're not going to touch the Can PL stuff this week, or we'll be on here for another 45 minutes.
But
that was a smart choice. Who's going to be Mitch? You want to be Mitch for the
just sign us off, Jeff?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll step up. Anyways, so thank you everyone for joining us here today. Appreciate you guys taking the time bearing us with us without our third musketeer. Shout out to our producers Sophia, Kevin, and Edwin for the words that he's right. And then I want to give a special shout out there to Edwin because he's been doing some great work at Waking the Red from these shows and turning some great articles around from these shows. Edwin,
we almost at 100 for his second one. 100 comments on the thread. I think we are
something like that. And
I think he's going to break. I think he's going to break the Century Club on his second hit out of the gate. So way to go, Ed.
Great show. And yes, thank you again to Meaghen Johnson for joining us, and she was absolutely fantastic. There's a big Canadians Women's national team match tomorrow. They're taking on Brazil. Make sure you tune in to that one. Alphonso Davies plays some Champions League later today, so make sure eyes on the screen for that one. But
Arsenal play.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, on that. I'm Michael Singh. This is Jeffrey on behalf of Jeffrey Pinesker. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.